So I work in Albany as a criminal defense attorney, but I actually live in the 19th district in Grafton, which is outside of Troy. So this is great that this is happening. I wasn't sure what you all would be interested in hearing about, so I'm going to talk a bit about protests and people's rights in general and dealing with the police, and then open it up for questions and comments. So it is really important now more than ever that we be speaking out and that we also be protesting in the streets. And so I wanted to talk about what are your rights in terms of organizing a protest or going to a protest. So hopefully a lot of you will be doing this or have been doing this. So one of the questions when you're going to organize a protest is, should I get a permit? And if you're going to have a large protest, more than 100 or 200 people, then I would say it is a good idea to get a permit, especially if you're going to have a march, if you're going to be in some park or something and you want to have that space secured. It's a good idea to apply for a permit at whatever municipality, city, town that you live in. Sometimes they'll give you a hard time, and I would say don't give in, say, well, we're going to do this regardless. We were asking for a permit, but it's not going to stop us from doing this. And sometimes they will say, well, you need $1 million insurance policy or something really onerous like that. And there's actually case law that my colleague Mark Mishler dealt with the city of Albany in the past, where that is unconstitutional to require, under the First Amendment, we have a right to assemble, a right to protest, and they can't put these really extreme insurance requirements over that for just a public protest in a park or something, or a march. So I would say don't, if there's something like that, contact an attorney and, don't give in again. If you get a permit and you're going to have a march, you can be in the street, and not only be in the street, but the police will often escort you, and it makes it safer dealing with traffic. They'll deal with the traffic, and you can just be in the street and not worry about it. So it's good to have if you have a big protest, but it's not necessary, especially if you have a smaller protest or if you organize something really quickly and you don't have time to go through that process. It's perfectly legal to have a protest, including a march, without a permit. You kind of are supposed to stay on the sidewalk, which, sometimes you can go in the street anyway, but that's not necessarily legal, but yeah, you have to be aware of the situation. But it's perfectly legal to have a protest and march on the sidewalk, and just be careful of traffic. You have to deal with traffic yourself. And you can be in one place on the sidewalk too. That's legal, as long as you're not blocking the sidewalk for people being able to use it to walk. Sometimes the police will say, oh, you can't be here, you don't have a permit, and actually, it's good to be firm again and say, no, we have a right to be here as long as we're not blocking the sidewalk. You can walk around, you can stand there as long as you're not. Sometimes they'll say, well, you have to be moving on the sidewalk, which isn't really true, as long as you're not blocking the sidewalk. So as long as people can walk by, you have a right to do that. And a lot of times you can organize a quick protest. You hear that, say, FASA's going to be speaking somewhere, like happened in Albany recently, and just get there and be there with your signs and speakers, and you don't need a permit for that, something like that. So. And also, most of the protests that I've been involved with have been in Albany, and also some national ones in other places like DC. But in Albany these days, the police really don't want to arrest people, so you're really in good shape there. And even if you don't have a permit, they're very accommodating, and the police chief's good, the mayor's good. They don't want to be dealing with arresting protesters. So that's nice if you're in Albany, or if you're at the state capitol, you're dealing with the New York State Police. They're very, very used to protests there, including civil disobedience. So they're pretty chill. They're not in a hurry to arrest people. I was at a a protest recently for parole reform where we actually had the Rude Mechanical Orchestra going through the concourse. Very, very loud. It was great. And the police are just like, all right, well, hurry up and get over with this. But they weren't trying to arrest anybody. So Albany's good. The state capitol concourse area is good. Other areas, especially on this side of the river, they're not as used to it. I don't know, I haven't been in protests around Hudson, Chatham, areas like that. Troy, I don't know, but so places like that, you know, you still technically have your rights to have these protests without a permit, but I can't predict how the police might react, so it's good to have legal support unless you're familiar with the area and maybe you talk to the police in advance. Sometimes that can be helpful. But it's good to have legal support if you don't know or if they're acting kind of squirrely about it. Let's see. One important point is you have the right to take any photos or video from any public vantage point. So if you're in a public place, you can video the police, you can video Faso if he's there, you can video whatever's going on. And sometimes the police will say, oh, you can't do that. Well, no, it's really clear legally that you have a right to be taking photos and video. And this is super important these days. As you know, there's an epidemic of police shooting mainly young black men, and this is nothing new at all. It's been going on forever. But what's new is the prevalence of the video of it, right? So, you know, if you happen to see a situation where the police are harassing somebody, I would say, yeah, as long as you're not in the way, you can video that. And that act in itself may help the situation because the cop knows he's being watched and videoed. They may have body cameras, they may turn them off, they may not show what they need to show. So it's really important these days that people feel empowered to do that video, to capture whatever abuses may be going on. And there's some apps, I think the Civil Liberties Union and other groups, you can Google it, have apps where that video can be uploaded directly to a website. So if the police were to take your phone, it's already out there. And if they smash the phone, it doesn't matter because it's already uploaded to a website. So I would encourage people to explore that and to not be afraid to do that. You can't jump in the middle between an officer and whatever they're doing. That's not legal, but if you're far enough away where you're not blocking what they're doing, you know, be a witness and document that.
Yeah. I'd like to add something to it. If you are detaining, you need to ask if you're free to go.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. One other place I was gonna mention where people sometimes protest is at the mall. Now malls are kind of decreasing in popularity and starting to close, but there's still, you know, a lot going on at some of the malls. And unfortunately, because they're not public property, you don't have a right to protest there. Under the case law in New York, you know, people have tried to make the argument that it's a public forum, that the public goes there, the public is invited in there, but the courts have said, no, they can kick you out if they want to. If you're there with signs, they can kick you out. But my friend Steve Downs, back in 2003, you may have heard of this, he, you know, right before the war in Iraq started, he decided that he would go to Crossgates Mall in Albany with his son, who's on the Sierra Club, Roger Downs, and they bought t-shirts at the mall where you could get your own t-shirt made at a little shop, and it said, I think Steve said, peace on earth, and Roger said, let sanctions work, and they walked around the mall, and were approached by the Guilderland police, and told they had to take off their t-shirts. And Roger said, oh, all right. And Steve said no. And Steve at the time was the chief attorney at the Commission on Judicial Conduct, getting ready to retire, but that was his position. He'd been policing bad judges his whole career. And he was arrested and charged with trespass, I think, and possibly disorderly conduct. And it went kind of viral in the media. And the mall was very, very, very upset that they had actually done this, that he had been arrested, because it really was a backlash on them. Because for one thing, Women Against War, we had a meeting in Albany, and we ended up having 200 people going the next week, all wearing peace t-shirts in that mall. And we could do whatever we wanted, because we had the numbers, and there was such a backlash against the mall. So sometimes you win on the ground and not through the courts. So keep that in mind too. That's really important. I'm saying as a lawyer, that's really important. We kept going back every year with the peace t-shirts in the mall. And they still, we can still do it because of that, not because of the law. So dealing with the police in general, one thing I've learned over the years, because I sometimes have been known to have a hot temper with the police. I've been arrested a lot of times myself in civil disobedience actions, and I've been, stopped, pulled over, and have gotten into screaming back at cops. And I have learned over the years that that's not really a good idea. And certainly I had white privilege to not get shot by doing it, right? And I know black people have to tell their kids how to keep the hands on the steering wheel and tell them what you're going to do. And it's good advice if the cop is really on edge anyway, to just tell them, okay, I'm going to reach for my license, So I've learned over the years to be calm. I'm getting better at it. To be calmer with them, to be respectful, hoping that they will be respectful of you. But to not just necessarily do whatever they say either. If they say, oh, get off the sidewalk, you can't be here, say, no, we have a right to be here. And if they grab you or something, or say, well, stop, I want to talk to you, as you pointed out, if you have no duty to talk to them, you can walk away unless you're being detained. So if in whatever situation the police say, oh, I want to ask you some questions, you can say, well, am I being detained? And if they say no, you can walk away. If you are being detained, then I would say just give them your name, maybe your address. You're not required to carry ID on you, although if they're going to arrest you for whatever reason, whether it's a planned civil disobedience action or something that just happened spontaneously, if they're going to arrest you, it can be very helpful if you have ID on you, because they will often tend to release you sooner that way, because if you don't have ID, they're going to want to maybe do your fingerprints and run them and try to find out who you are, because they're not going to believe, whatever you tell them, because people give the wrong names a lot. So it can be helpful to have ID, but you're not required by law to have ID in New York State when you're just out on the street. If you're driving a car, of course, you're supposed to have your license with you, but if you're just out at a protest or walking or something, you're not required to have ID. And I would say don't answer questions about anything that might be involved with why you're being arrested. There's no way that that's going to help you. You can deal with that later. If you get arrested, you can talk to a lawyer and tell them whatever the situation is. 99.9% of the time, if they're going to arrest you, they're going to arrest you. You're not going to talk your way out of it. Anything you say will be used against you as the Miranda warning goes. On the other hand, people often, because I represent a lot of people who are arrested in all sorts of situations, and sometimes they'll say, oh, can I get it dismissed because they never read me my rights? And no, they do not have to read you your rights unless they are questioning you after you're in custody. So if they have you in custody and they want to question you, then they're supposed to read you your rights. Say you have a right to remain silent, you have the right to an attorney, you don't have to answer any questions without your attorney being present, and anything can be used against you, and there's these things they have to say. but only if they want to question you, and so a lot of times they won't. They already, if they see you blocking traffic or something, they may not even want to question you. They got maybe pictures of it, they got what they need. Then they don't have to read you your rights if they're not going to question you. So, let's see, if you're in a car and you get pulled over, they have to have a reason for stopping the car. Technically, they can often claim if they want to stop any given car, they can often make up a traffic violation, but they're supposed to have witnessed a traffic violation or have maybe somebody gave a specific description of your car as involved in a crime, and then they can pull you over. But otherwise, they have to have witnessed a traffic violation. So if they just pull you over and for no reason, yes?
What about traffic stops? These are like conventional things. They say in July 4th, the weekend, they had traffic stops
Okay.
all over the place.
So that's something called a checkpoint. They can either be set up for DWI, looking for DWI violations, or they can be set up for what they call traffic safety, which is where they're checking child safety seats, seatbelts, registration, inspection, things like that. So those, by law, there was a case in the city of Indianapolis a bunch of years ago that upheld those if they stop everybody. It has to be a checkpoint in a particular place, and they have to stop everybody, or at least kind of, sometimes they wave people through, but they have to look at everybody, slow down, stop, and everybody, not just pulling over somebody and saying, oh, I'm checking to see if you're drunk. They can't do that unless it's a fixed checkpoint. And you're right, they have been doing that a lot, especially over 4th of July weekend. So, yes.
More and more law enforcement agencies are using unmarked vehicles.
Yeah.
What identification are we allowed or expected to ask for? Or are they required, or what are they required to produce?
Well, I think it depends on the situation, what they're doing, but certainly if you get pulled over by an unmarked car and you're nervous about it, you can ask them to show that they're police. They'll probably have a badge or something, which isn't necessarily proof, but you can usually tell. They'll have the lights and they'll have some kind of badge. They probably won't pull you over unless there's something going on. They don't generally do the traffic stops unless they're targeting a particular vehicle. So let's see. I guess I'll open it up now. Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the best response is if they do try to take the camera.
I mean, again, stay calm, don't try to fight with them. Hopefully, it's been going to a website, so it's documented in some way. You can say, I have a right, I have the legal right to photograph you. You don't have the right to take my phone, unless you're being arrested, and then they'll take everything from you and document it. But,
If they
there's,
do, just take it, and you just have to wait.
yeah, I mean, you can't physically stop them from doing whatever they're gonna do. They may be violating the law, so it's just stay calm, remember as many details as you can. If anyone is there as a witness, that's great. You can look around and see if there's other people who might be watching this and try to get contact information from them or give them your contact information. And then you have to deal with it later. You don't want to get into a fight with them. If they detain you and and you're under arrest and you even go like this because you're upset, that constitutes resisting arrest, which is a misdemeanor. It can. I mean, they can charge you with resisting arrest for as little as something like that. So, unless you're doing the whole blockade, get dragged away thing, and want to do that and choose to do that, that's fine. But just be aware that that can be resisting arrest. So, if you don't want to deal with that, and it's just something where you might be charged with disorderly conduct or trespass for some kind of protest that they're saying maybe you're at a mall and they're kicking you out or something, and you don't want a higher level charge, then just calm down, go along with them and deal with it later.